Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're here today with our very good friend, Patricia Raybon. I've been looking forward to this interview for quite some time. Um, Patricia is formerly a newspaper journalist. She turned to writing historical mystery novels during the pandemic and hasn't looked back. Her first fiction is the award-winning Annalee Spain mystery series, whose debut, All That Is Secret, won a Christie Award for first novel and was picked by NBA All-Star Steph Curry for his literati book club. There it is. There's the book. The second installment, Double the Lies, won the 2024 Christianity Today Book Award for fiction. And then third in the series is her new book that's just released last month called Truth Be Told. The New York Times named Annalee Spain as one of four great fictional detectives in a recent book review column. Patricia cut her writing teeth in high-pressure newsrooms, working at the Denver Post and later the Scripps Howard Pulitzer Prize-winning Rocky Mountain News. Mid-career, she joined the journalism faculty at the University of Colorado at Boulder, where she taught print journalism for 15 years. Her personal essays are published in the New York Times Magazine, Newsweek, USA Today, and many other national publications. And Patricia and I have worked together for many years. She's spoken at many of the writers' conferences and online events that I've led, and I've interviewed her for many times. So it's always such a pleasure to be able to do that again. You can learn more about Patricia and all of her work at patriciaraybon.com. So, Patricia, thanks so much for joining us. Many congratulations on all the wonderful things you've done.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. People are finally putting this two and two together, that it's okay for a writer of faith to write murder mysteries. And so I love talking about it, and I'm always so honored by an invitation. So thanks for having me today.
So is there anything else you'd like people to know about you before we get started?
One thing, and I don't think it was in the intro, I'm a regular contributor to, speaking of faith writing, a regular contributor at Our Daily Bread Ministries. And it's so interesting to me, Brian, that I never guessed that this would happen, that people will see a devotional that that I wrote for Our Daily Bread. And if they like it, they might look me up and then discover that I write a mystery series. I cannot tell you how many times. I was at the Barnes & Noble book signing in Colorado Springs on Saturday, and same thing happened. A woman came in and said, "Oh, I love your devotionals at Our Daily Bread." And then I found out that you write a mystery series. So I never anticipated that connection, but I hear it all the time. So I'll just mention.
Oh, there you go. I mean, it's good lead generation, and I mean, for any authors, having their name out there in various places and awareness that brings is, a really good thing. And in today's very noisy social media world, it's hard to do that on your own.
Right.
But, a platform like Our Daily Bread, obviously gets a lot of eyeballs.
Right. And the publisher told me something I hadn't thought of. She said, it may be that because people trust this longtime global ministry like Our Daily Bread, they believe that if they do read your mystery novels, they're not going to be assaulted with, sordid, gory stories, and they aren't. In fact, my publisher, Tyndale House, calls them a clean mysteries, a clean fiction. And so
that's a really good point. The brands that you associate yourself with make a big difference.
Right. So that's the other thing that's interesting, I think, for people to know. In fact, on my website, the little tag above at the top says writing faith and mystery. So there you go.
Exactly. Well, we have a couple different areas we want to talk about today. The first, I want to get to is your mystery series, the Annalee Spain series of novels. How did you start writing novels? It's quite a departure from where you were earlier.
All those years. Well, the short answer has to do with the pandemic. We had a pandemic, and we were all isolated, right, for that long period, especially in 2020, I think it was. And so I remember saying to my husband, Dan, what would you think if I gave a try to this mystery writing, that I love the genre. And so we talked about that. But the answer really, Brian, goes way back to my years in the newsroom. When I left the Ohio State University with a degree in journalism, ended up on the city desk at the Denver Post. And one day, after about a year or two, one day there was an announcement on the bulletin board for a writing position in the features department. And I had wanted to move my career along and move up. And so I got the position. I literally went upstairs from the newsroom to the features department. And at one point, many, many years ago, it was called the women's pages. And when I joined the features department, it was called the lifestyles, I think. And so I went from writing about facts to writing about feelings. And the other thing that was happening was that there was a lot of excitement at that time about long form journalism. And so we were encouraged to write really long page one Sunday feature stories on issues and people and their problems and their struggles and their victories. And maybe not instead of a 5-inch little news story for the city desk, these were really long, reflective pieces, really digging deep under the surface of people's lives. I did not know at the time that was really setting laying the foundation for the work I would do 5+ decades later in fiction. It's the same kind of writing.
Interesting. Wow.
And so I mention it in this conversation because Anne Lamott always says writing is about paying attention. And so when we pay attention to the opportunities that we've had in life, the work that we've done, so often it's connected in a way that we don't see at first. But as an answer to your question, how I got into fiction, that's really how. I don't think I would have had felt like a certain level of comfort about it if I had not been writing feature stories all these years. Jerry Jenkins, whose son is behind the very popular television series about the Christ, said to me, not everybody, even who's come out of the newsroom, can turn to fiction. And so I really credit, not myself, but all those years I spent as a feature writer and then teaching news feature reporting when I taught at the university. So that has made a huge, huge difference.
Well, you had so many successful nonfiction books, but many times people will just kind of stick with it, so to speak, the same genre, the same space that they've been writing in. But you made a big jump, and I was thrilled that it's gone so well.
Me, thrilled and surprised. I had no idea. I said to my agent, who had been representing my nonfiction, that I had finished this manuscript for a murder mystery, historical fiction, history mystery. is what I call it. And he said, sure, yeah. I said, would you represent it? And he said, let me take a look at it. And he really liked it. And he sold it almost right away. And then Tyndale House, which bought All That Is Secret, came back immediately the same day and said, could you turn this into a series? So, because mystery readers love, series. And so I went from wondering if this book would sell, if we could find a publisher to it, to having a 3-book contract. That's what we initially signed. So
Tyndale is one of those publishers that publishes both fiction and nonfiction.
Yes.
Which is not always the case with, many of the Christian imprints that I've dealt with. So
they didn't always publish fiction.
Is that right?
Right. For a long time, Tyndale didn't. But now they have a huge fiction division. And
so without giving too much away, can you tell people about kind of the general themes of the series and in particular this 3rd book?
Sure. I think it's a 30-second answer. When the theme is in any mystery stories, always finding the truth and setting a society that's off kilter back in order. That's what the detective does. I often cite that the Tom Cruise, Jack Nicholson movie, A Few Good Men. There's that scene where Jack Nicholson says, in answer to a question to Tom Cruise's character, he says, you can't handle the truth. Do you remember that scene?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
And so in my series, my question for my little protagonist is, can she handle the truth? That's for every story. But really quickly, history mystery set in Colorado in the 1920s when the Klan ruled the state. And Annalee Spain, who is also a fan of Sherlock Holmes, comes home to solve the murder of her estranged father. And then in Double the Lies, book 2, she is racing the clock to solve the murder of a stunt pilot before she gets framed for the crime. And then in Truth Be Told, she's at a fancy garden party when a young lady is found dead in the potting shed. And nobody seems to care about that person. And so Annalee is determined to figure out what happened, who she is, and who did it. And so for all of those stories, that's the search that she's on, to find the truth about something that has happened that has left somebody dead and gone. And she wants to serve those people so they are more than just, a name on a cop sheet. She wants to know who were they and what happened. And what does it say about who they are? What does that say about us? So she's always on the search, and including asking questions, the truth about herself.
Wow. So one of your endorsements comes from none other than basketball star Steph Curry. Here's what he says, speaking to his book club. I've chosen to share this book with you all for many reasons. Mysteries featuring and written by strong Black women are uncommon. This changes the game for good. As theology professor Annalee Spain's faith shines through, we get to share not only an exciting mystery, but a vulnerable spiritual journey as well. It's something special. That is such a fantastic, commentary coming from him. And how did you learn about his endorsement?
In a Facebook group that I've been in for years. It's a Black writers, professional writers Facebook group. And one day, one of the women in the Facebook, in the group, said, hey, everybody, the Steph Curry people have asked me to be the lead person on his book club. He's he's a luminary, that's the word they use, in a book club called Literati. And so that meant that she would suggest 5 or 6 titles for him to know about each month. And so when I saw her post, right away I wrote, do you think he would be interested in mine? And she said, I've already told him about your book. And so, yeah, I share that story, Brian, because it really speaks to often how a lot of things happen. People like to work with people they know,
Yes,
and people they trust, their friends.
absolutely.
And so I've been in that Facebook group, oh my gosh, forever. And, but I still do enjoy the women in it, and the, whatever investment that I had made in those relationships led to him knowing about my book. And so, friendship counts, relationships count.
One of my favorite business books has the title, The Speed of Trust.
There you go.
That's the whole book is about that, and how trust is such an important element to relationships and business and everything. So, your story is an embodiment of that.
Yeah. Well, with the New York Times endorsement, I think one could say almost the same thing. Something similar happened. I don't know the crime columnist at the book review at the New York Times, but my publicist at Tyndale House said that she had been watching the series because she was interested in the interplay between mystery and faith. And in fact, that's the phrase she used, that I had been threading that needle in this series very well. And so I really, really appreciated that a long-standing newspaper of record like the New York Times would endorse a Christian fiction series. That's essentially, what it is. I think what she was looking for was a way for other people who aren't necessarily come from a faith background to find themselves comfortable in the story. And so the searching that Annalee does, she has there's a lot of spiritual questioning in all of this mysteries. And she is a believer, but she still has questions of God. And so the New York Times seemed to think that's that element of the series makes room for other people to enjoy the stories too.
Wow, that's just excellent. You really caught on to something there, I think.
I hope so. Yeah, I enjoy the writing of these stories and the fiction. I look back on my life in the church. I grew up in the church in a denomination that allowed that kind of questioning. It's not. I grew up in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, and so the DNA of the AME Church really is social justice. but beyond that, even there is room is given for parishioners to ask hard questions of God, which the psalmists do. Somebody said to me on a podcast the other day, well, people say you shouldn't question God. And I said, well, those people haven't read this. Maybe.
Really?
David and, all the psalmists,
or Job.
The book of Habakkuk, how long, God, how long? And so those Bible personalities, which I've been told about and taught about my entire life, I think inform my humble approach to this fiction work that I'm attempting to do.
So what would you like for people to most take away from the books when they read them?
I want them to see the face. The books put a face on a young woman of color in a space where she has no currency. She's not valued. We're in the 1920s in Colorado when the Klan was the largest, most powerful political bloc in the entire state. I think I've told you this before. The Klan Colorado had the second highest Klan membership per capita of any state in the Union after Indiana.
Wow.
And so I'm wanting people to see, and part of the insult of being a target of that is that people don't see all of who you are. So I want people to see Annalee as a fully dimensional young woman of color, trying to live her life, love her God, be loved by a young pastor who's her love interest, while she's also trying to solve some mysteries in a very hostile social environment.
Wow.
But in all of that still, this is who she is. I want people to see her, and then in getting to know her, think about how the kind of lives that we are living now. I like that the mysteries invite me to revisit the past for context for how I'm trying to live in the present. And so that's what I hear, and people are saying that that's what's happening as they read the stories.
Well, you've done a lovely job with them, and I'm just so happy for that.
Thank you. I have great editors at Tyndale House. My acquisitions editor, and then each of us is assigned a developmental editor or a line editor. They're not changing spelling, or that's somebody else's proofreading. But these are people, my editor for the Annalee Spain books. She's the kind of editor who will say, okay, this character did such and such in chapter 4. Why is he doing such and such in chapter 24? She always invites me to take a second harder look at maybe a section that needs more attention from me. And it's invaluable. At book clubs, people will say, what if an editor wants you to change something that you don't want to change? And my answer is that almost never happens, because I'm depending on these editors to see what does need to be changed. They're that other, the writer can't see everything or perceive everything. And so I just love working with this wonderful editorial team at Tyndale House. It's really great.
Good for you.
We have these meetings. Sometimes, Brian, we'll sit there on Zooms talking about the villain. It was a strange thing to think about. Three adult women saying, "Do we have the right villain?"
Well, good for you for having the maturity and the humility to be able to have that kind of collaboration. Not every author does.
Maybe not. Maybe I'm sure I learned that in the newsroom too.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the whole general idea of finding your next calling. You've made several career changes. including from journalist to professor to nonfiction author to fiction author. So can you talk a little bit about your discernment process around those types of shifts?
Yeah. A couple of things. When the doors close, that's certainly a time to look at doors that are getting opened. And so that's happened with me, each of these steps that you described. And because I had no plan whatsoever to teach journalism on the tenure track at a university. But once I interviewed and got the position, then I had to do the next thing that all of us have to do when we shift gears, and that is learn to refine what I didn't know how to do. And that was, I didn't know how to teach. And so at the University of Colorado, they still have a department called the Faculty Teaching Excellence Program. And so I would go to every seminar, workshop, dog fight, whatever. One time, Brian, Parker Palmer was there.
Oh, wow.
Week.
Wow.
Talking about the courage to teach.
Mm.
And so that just made, such a huge difference for my understanding about what I should be in the classroom. Parker Palmer says that everybody who comes into the classroom comes in with their intellect and some knowledge and some understanding. And so the teacher isn't the center of the classroom. The subject is. And so even if I would even physically set up the classroom so we were all in the circle, and I'm in the circle too, and we're focused on that topic. I didn't know that at the beginning, but going to these workshops at the faculty excellence teaching program just made such a huge difference, and would not have, and that's to your bigger question, would not have if I hadn't said, what is it that I don't know? Go find out and work on it. And so I've tried to do that with everything. From as far as moving from nonfiction to fiction, I had to face the fact that I'm not a theologian by training. I'm not a seminarian. I have no seminary degree, but I was trying to do this nonfiction, inspirational Christian writing without that foundation. And so the pandemic really, curiously, gave me a reason to take a hard look at that and say, what's the other thing that you could do with this skill, this writing that you enjoy so much?
Wow. Well, good for you. Talk about thinking out of the box, right? You were not stuck with your blinders on in a particular genre or, way of thinking or whatever. You had, Carol Dweck wrote that famous book called Mindset that talks about fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. You clearly have exhibited the growth mindset, right? Because you consciously said to yourself, okay, here's what I think I want to do. How do I go do it? And boom, 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 right? You followed up with all the steps necessary to be successful in that new arena, whatever the new arena was.
I very quickly started joining these affinity groups for mystery writers. So Mystery Writers of America, Crime Writers of Color, Sisters in Crime Colorado. And I'm also a member of the Authors Guild. And Brian, they would offer these webinars featuring successful fiction writers. And so I remember one day watching an hour plus webinar, and I thought, these people are not joking around. They are giving this, um, this journey that they are on. They are giving it their all. And so if you're going to be in this, you have to, will you commit to give it your all? And so that's what I, with God's help, continue to try to do.
Good for you. Good for you. So, as you know, we have many aspiring authors in our audience. What kind of advice would you give to people that are just at the beginning of their publishing journey?
Don't go it alone.
Huh.
I have a page on my website called Words for Writers, and that's a huge piece of advice that I tell everybody, that there are workshops and conferences, Writing for Your Life, Publishing in Color, all of these places, West Coast Christian Writers Conference, all these places where writers convene and gather with agents and editors. Publishers are looking for to discover new authors. And so make an investment and go to one or two of those a year and start meeting people and having people meet you. And it just you'll save years and years of a struggle on your own by connecting with other people, and plus getting the benefit of the camaraderie and the friendship and the support.
Amen. Couldn't agree more.
That's my advice. And then release the gift. Is a late pastor would always encourage his parishioners. If God has poured something into you, take that novel out of the desk drawer that's been sitting there, and send it out and see what people say. And so I mentioned Barnes and Noble the other day. A woman said she's been sitting on a manuscript for something like 10 years. Wow. It's time to send it out and get some kind of feedback to know what to do next.
Sure. So I know you've been in the middle of a book launch, but can you say anything about the future in terms of new books or other projects?
Yes, I am under contract for a World War II spy novel.
Oh my goodness.
And so that's due with God's help, in September. And so I'm really enjoying this story. And so I'm excited about that. And then I released a devotional with Our Daily Bread called God is Our Help. Mm. And Joyce Dinkins, Joyce.
Of course.
Was on her way to her next venture, which you know about, when she asked me if I would do this last project for her at Our Daily Bread. And it looks at 8 ways that God helps us when we need him the most.
Wow.
And so I had said to her, I don't think I have time to do this. I'm writing, that time I was working on Truth Be Told, the Annalee Spain #3 mystery. But I enjoyed it so much. And so it's out. It released in May of this year, and Truth Be Told released in June. So that's, that's what's on the books. It's not, I'm not writing War and Peace, but I am trying to write entertaining stories that invite the readers to think about some deep things in the heart of my character, and also in their own hearts.
Well, I know you do a ton of work and a ton of research into your books, and so don't sell them short. They're great pieces of work, and I couldn't be more thrilled, Patricia, that it's all going so well for you.
Thank you so much. Brian, I told you this 1,000 times. Your friendship is priceless. You are such a friend to authors.
Well, same here. I'm so glad we've been able to collaborate so many times, and I've been so grateful for that opportunity on multiple levels. So, again, I'm just thrilled about, this new book and this series, and, look forward to the ones coming up too.
Thank you.
Please check out all of Patricia's work. It's too long for me to list all of her books and all of her wonderful things that she's done. Go to patriciaraybon.com and stay with the latest. Patricia, thanks again so much.
Thank you so much, Brian. And let's keep talking and meeting and serving and seeing what the Lord is leading us for these next chapters.
Amen. Amen.